All right, guys, welcome. Welcome, Dan. This is a fun podcast. We actually got some guests on EBJ.
Yeah, yeah, it's rare for us, but it's fun to change gears, and especially very important times that we find ourselves in, and our hunting heritage being attacked by the opposition. So yeah, great conversation about the mountain lion or the cat hunting ban in the state of Colorado.
Yep, Dan Gates, Charles Witwam from HAL. These guys are so educated and leading the fight in Colorado there. So, yeah, just great guys, great conversation, and it's good. I always learn something when I sit down with these guys, and I think it's great information for our audience as well, as we all just have to stay informed and help support Colorado in this fight, or eventually we'll lose all our hunting.
Yeah, it's a good refresher, a conversation like this. It's a good refresher on that even the little guys, you can get involved, you can pitch in, you can help. Like I've already called my relatives in the state of Colorado and told them about this ban and how important it is to vote against it. I think it's initiative number 91 that's going to be on the ballot this November. And so even little old me from Wyoming that hasn't hunted a ton in Colorado, I've hunted a fair amount in there in the state of Colorado, but even myself, there's things that I can do, whether it's social media or calling my relatives, calling people I know in Colorado, just to make sure they're aware. I have family there that are non-hunters, even a couple liberals. I hate to even say that, but they're down there living in Denver, and they're kind of out of the scoopage of what's going on wildlife management wise, and so it's just an opportunity to be able to educate and talk to them about wildlife management in the Western hunting and conservation model, and kind of what we've built as sportsmen over the course of 100 years in the United States. So yeah, there's always a time and a place for education and awareness, and this is definitely one of them.
Oh, 100%, man. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I went cat hunting this year and mostly just to experience what those houndsmen, their love for it, their passion for it, and to be able to see their side, to be able to represent it better. And it's been huge for me. And so just getting to meet these guys and see the knowledge and time invested and really this predator control is so important for our conservation model of being able to have this renewable resource. So yeah, it's so important. Great conversation with these guys. They're so knowledgeable, and we'll get right into it. Just want to thank a sponsor for today's show. I want to thank G5 arrows. Man, I'm impressed with these arrows, Dan. They're flying great.
Yeah, I've able to get both of their brand styles or models, should I say, of shafts in the office here. The Mark series and the Stack series. The Mark is the more premium arrow shaft, I would say. The level of detail that's put into them, the layers of carbon, the woven carbon, incredibly strong arrow shaft. The Stacks is more of the economical version. You don't have as many of the layers. They're still, once again, a great arrow. I've shot them both out of my lift. They tune fantastic. The bare shaft uh, shots out of both of them are phenomenal. So I don't have any complaints out of that. And the components are phenomenal too. As we've talked before, your arrow is only as good as the components that you have on it. But the insert, oversert, the combination system on that we see with these small diameter arrows are fantastic. Bulletproof. They're not going to bend on you, hit heavy bone or whatever the case may be. They're not going to fail on you. So that's so important as well in a good quality arrow.
Yeah, like such great straightness tolerances, such great
Yep.
weight tolerances on them. And you can tell that these guys put a ton of energy and effort into their research to build the absolute best arrow they can build. So, yeah, go check them out. Dan and I are sure impressed with them. They're going to shoot really good for us this season. And thanks to those guys for their support.
Yep. It's been awesome. Can't wait to run them through a red deer in New Zealand.
There you go, buddy. Yeah, same thing. Can't wait to well, not same, but can't wait to run them through a bear here in Montana too. So yeah, they're shooting great for me. So yeah, we want to thank Eastmans for their support of the podcast. You check out The other podcasts we have under our umbrella, the Eastman's Hunting Journal, Eastman's Elevated, my other podcast there. And check out Wingman. There's a bunch under the umbrella there, so a bunch of good recordings. Check out our Beyond the Grid internet TV show, which Dan has had a huge part in over the years. And man, the videos are just absolutely next level, Dan. I'm so impressed with the quality and the editing, and we're really producing some good vids out there.
Yep. Love the adventure hunting, and we just wrapped up our season from 2023, and man, already ramping up and editing footage from the fall of 2023 for our new season coming in 2024. So that'll start off in July. So that's very exciting stuff. Lots of deer and elk hunting, good old Western adventures, and some outliers there too. Actually, New Zealand, that'll be a show as well. So we have kind of a little bit of everything. We really enjoy it. And yeah, thanks for watching, and be sure you guys tune in to all our aspects of media that we have. One thing I wanted to mention, we teamed up with the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management, Dan Gates, as Brian had mentioned, but we made a belly band with them on our current issue of the Eastman's Hunting Journal. And it's kind of an informational thing. There's a bunch on the back here just talking about the ban in Colorado. So that just kind of a cool thing. You can get magazines through them on some of their events that they're doing with this belly band. So that's very exciting as well, doing what we can to help out the hunting in Colorado. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, good work, you guys. So, yeah, definitely check that out, and check out everything these guys are doing. Definitely leading the charge and leading the fight in Colorado and other states as well. I just can't say enough good things about Hal, Charles Witwam, and everything that he's doing for hunting. It's an organization that I really like to support. So check those guys out, and hope you enjoy the conversation today. So let's get into it, Dan.
Heck yeah, let's do it.
Dan, we just had you step in the booth, but yeah, we were able to put this podcast together. So Dan and Charles are leading the fight in Colorado and nationwide. Right now, we're fighting the Bobcat mountain lion initiative that's going on in Colorado. But maybe you guys can just give us a quick introduction, Charles, what you do and where the fight is, and then we'll go to Dan.
Yeah, I'm Charles Witwam, founder of Howl for Wildlife, and our mission is basically to get sportsmen educated on the issues and give them an easy way to get involved. We're a separate organization from CRWM with Dan here. Basically, what's going on there, it needs attention nationwide. We want to make what's going on in Colorado a nationwide issue so everybody can get involved at some level.
So I'm Dan Gates. I'm the executive director for the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management, and it's a C4 organization we started about 6 years ago. The mission is to enhance, promote, and defend the North American model of wildlife conservation and responsible wildlife management. We become the tip of the spear on these initiatives in Colorado. We've been victorious on citizens' petitions through the Parks and Wildlife Commission, through the Colorado State Legislature on a bunch of things. But now the animal activist extremists have decided to go to the ballot and try to let the general public vote on some of these issues. The most important being this, what they call Initiative 91, which is the initial stages. And they're trying to take the harvest of bobcats and mountain lions off of the table, and lynx as well. But even though lynx is kind of like a red heron in the lower 48, you can't harvest them. But they're using the emotions and the deceit and the lies to be able to mislead the general public and try to be victorious. But we think we're going to be becoming a little bit more in the fight, I'd say, so to speak.
I think we're really in the fight. Dan's heard me mention Hal multiple times whenever we get together and talk. And I think you've done a great job of uniting us sportsmen and getting us organized to really lead the fight. And I feel not that we've won, but I feel that like we've got a way better chance this time around with you guys leading the fight than we did for, like, say, the Wolf Initiative or something like that. It just feels like you guys have us a little bit more organized.
I think a lot of it is learning from past failures and then also capitalizing on successes that have been had over the course of the last, 10 or 20 years, and figure out a way to implement that and create this moving machine that has so much momentum at the early onsets. And we just did a podcast earlier today, but we consider ourselves to be like in round 3 of a 15-round title bout. Mm-hmm. We won the first 3 rounds. But we have to have the stamina, we have to have the fighting, the training, the positioning to be able to get us to that 15th round and knock the crap out of these guys when we come up to the ballot on November 5th.
So important, isn't it? Charles, that we unite on these fronts. Like, you may not be somebody that hound hunts, or you may not be somebody that bow hunts, but it's important to realize their overall mission and goal with this, right, Charles?
We're all branches of the same tree, and the anti-hunting movement is to chop that tree down. So however way you want to look at it, we're all part of this, and the unity is what's going to make this successful. There are tens of millions of us. If we organize, we're a juggernaut that I don't think can be messed with, monetarily, messaging, you name it. That's really what our mission and our goal is here, is to find a way to bring everybody together so we're unified on whatever issues. So if it's trapping, if it's trad hunting, whatever it is, we all got each other's backs, because once you realize the strategy from the anti-hunters, you will realize that battle will be at your doorstep someday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What are, when I think about something that I can do as just an average guy that hunts and really holds, the resources that we have close to our heart and able to do, hunt predators, that's a big deal. So what are some of the things that we can do as average guys to like spread the word? And what comes to my mind is, I see on social media people that make comments about predator hunting or, justifying wolves. And to me, it seems like it's a result of like 30 years of Disney movies, right? Like we're humanizing these predators and people have built connections to them. And so they feel there's no reason to kill them. And I think some of that is like a huge hurdle that we have to try to overcome and educate. And so, like, for instance, I have some family, some cousins that they're not anti-hunters. They live in Colorado. They're not anti-hunters, but they're not hunters. But I see it as my duty to educate them on the issues and what the facts are, what the science is, and to not vote on emotion based on, what these initiatives are out there or why they're saying that we need to stop hunting predators or introduce wolves. It's the emotional aspect. So I guess cut down on the rabbit trail a little bit. What are some of the things that the general public can do to help spread the word? I think
one of the biggest things is, first of all, educate themselves about what interests they have.
Yeah.
Government overreach is one thing, but extremism and terrorism overreach is another. This isn't about mountain lions and bobcats. It is on this particular issue. But if you look at the language, this can affect anybody at any point in time by changing one word or changing one phrase or one sentence. And the way that it kind of morphed into this whole anti-campaign is because they're hoping to set a precedent with the language and the measure. And so people need to educate themselves. And while we talk about funding, we need funding to be able to turn around a message to that target audience that you refer to.
Yeah.
It's not cheap to get people that don't pay attention about your issues to understand about your issues, especially when you're talking about, 60 to 70% of the general population that doesn't have an opinion one way or another about hunting or fishing. You got the extremists on one side, which I'm referencing terrorism because that's what they're trying to do. They're terrorizing the North American model. They're terrorizing our ideology and traditions and our heritages. They're terrorizing every single thing about wildlife management and science-based management. And they're doing it in a manner to where it affects you, whether you hunt, whether you fish, just by knowing that the wildlife is on the landscape and I'm a wildlife viewer, or I just want to know that the things are managed appropriately and the stewardships that's there. They need to educate themselves first so they can educate their congregation, and so they can educate their family and their coworkers and the people on the softball team or at the bowling alley or at the grocery store because somebody was wearing an RMEF hat that you can turn on and say, hey, did you know about this thing? That's the first thing. Second, figure out a way to help fund, because this is not a Colorado-centric issue when you look at the language and the messaging that the terrorism are trying to do. We need funding to be able to message to that target audience when the vote comes to a vote. And if we can't afford to do that, then who messages to them? The opposition, the enemy, the terrorist. And if you want your kids to be able to fall in that category, if you want your neighbors to fall in that category, just sit and watch. The messaging is going to happen whether we're there or not. It's just that it's not going to be in our favor if we don't help fund it and if we don't help message it.
Well, a ban on mountain lion hunting, that's what it looks like right now. That's also a ban on mule deer hunting. It's a ban on turkey hunting. It's a ban on elk hunting. And the reason why that is because how they're defining trophy hunting. Dan, I know you know the exact verbiage here. What's the language that they're using for what their definition of trophy hunting is?
So while we took trophy hunting out of the title, we were successful in doing that through the title board in the Supreme Court, which cost us a lot of money to be able to do that. The measure language itself, which still is the law, that's what the precedent will be set. It says trophy hunting is intentionally killing, wounding, and stalking, pursuing, or entrapping a bobcat or mountain lion or a lynx. Intentionally killing, wounding, stalking, pursuing, or entrapping a mountain lion, bobcat, or lynx. That's hunting.
Yeah.
It's intentionally. But they're misleading the general public because they think that the general public is stupid enough to formulate this ideology that trophy hunting is nothing more than somebody going out and cutting a head off. We have laws, rules, and regulations, state and federally, and even in Canada, about wanton waste, about poaching. That's what they're talking about.
Yep. And they've made statements that say mountain lion is inedible, bear is inedible. It's completely not true. And while maybe somebody would say, well, that's not what they mean. Okay, well, let's look at Oregon. Let's look at IP3, what we dealt with last year. That was a ban on fishing, hunting, animal breeding, having anything.
Yep.
Anything on the table. That's their end goal. That's the cards. They showed their cards, which I think was kind of a mistake. But that's where they want to go to. We have to understand that. And they're not going to stop after this and say, all right, we're done. They're going to keep going and keep going and keep going. It's a fundraising mechanism for them.
The general public is not stupid. They might be ignorant about specific things. You made a comment earlier, Charles, about, this is comparable to allowing the general public to decide on how to do brain surgery. It's wildlife management. It's not about mountain lions and bobcats. It's about science-based wildlife management. I made a comment on a podcast that I don't want the gal at McDonald's doing a vasectomy. At least on me. She can do it on the animal activist if she wants, but I don't want her doing it on me. But we're to a point to where education is the first one to the punch. And through social media and through all the avenues out there, you can create something. And I don't know what the hell the deal is with, artificial intelligence messaging and stuff. We haven't even gotten into that. But we have a factual story with the North American model. We have a historical basis on our traditions and our heritages and our wildlife management productivity and procedures over the last 140 plus years. We should capitalize on that. And I'm getting a little bit better at trying to give the message about, first of all, we need money. But second of all, we as sportsmen, whether you agree with all aspects of the hunting and fishing component or not, the management component, you have to adhere to something. And the North American model is something that they are utilizing against us because it needs to be modified. It needs to be morphed. It needs to be adapted to. Well, maybe we do need to do that, but we need to do it based on science, not because some gal who sells flowers on the corner as a registered voter should be able to decide that. And if we don't stand our community up as a whole, how do we expect other people to be educated enough to make the right decision when they go to the ballot? I don't think that they are. And if they are, then make the right decision when they go to the ballot.
Mm-hmm. They're doing a really good job of hijacking the narrative.
Yep.
And they're changing the people that hunt are going to vote for hunting, and the people that don't hunt, like, those are the audience members that we have to affect. And it's funny when you run into these people, whether we're at the show. Somebody lost their keys or something here.
Edit that part out.
Yeah, that's part of doing these at the show. But they're really hijacking the narrative and convincing this voting public what to vote for, and they're hijacking the narrative by using those terms that you guys are talking about, or talking about how we're not using the meat, and they're trying to attack these small groups of us and thinks that we won't unify and unite and stand up and vote for what we should. And also, like you say, we need to, I just had this great conversation with Charles about, how they need funding to be able to get billboards out, or to be able to get this positive message about hunting. And we can do our part as well on social, reflecting it in a positive light. And ultimately, these people that are undecided are not bad people. The people that are attacking hunting, well, that's a different conversation, or the animal activists. But these normal, everyday, average people, they're just good people that don't have enough time to dig into this. And when the message gets hijacked, like then when they see these initiatives come up, they vote against them, So we need to work hard to change that message. And that is through our social media. That is through these podcasts. It is educating, and it is, donating money where our mouth is, like to How, that really organizes us and lets us fight on a united front. And we cannot let them attack these small groups of us. We really have to stand up for them.
Well, the novel idea that we had of messaging, of trying to get to the stakeholder, the hunter and angler, the sportsman and woman, is there was 192,000 people that applied for licenses, non-resident, in the state of Colorado last year. To do that, you have to have a qualifying license. You spend $39 or $54, depending on which license you buy, for the privilege of putting in for a license, and then you still have to pay application fees on top of that. The majority of those 192,000, if they didn't draw a license, they still have a small game license as a qualifying license. They didn't utilize it because they're not in Colorado. And even if they went to Colorado for 5 days for an elk hunt, they have a small game license, but they're probably not going to go hunt small game during that 5-day elk hunt. They might, but likely not. If we could get the majority of that 192,000 to help us and put their money where their mouth is and say, you're putting in for something just so you can apply for the tag, how about help support us so we can continue to help you fight for the ability to apply for that tag? Those are things that we don't look at. I mean, Mike Costello with How, he said just the cost of one box of ammo, send to this effort to SaveTheHuntColorado.com and help us build this war chest up to where we not only defeat these bastards when it comes November 5th, but that we built a war chest up and we create a roadmap and a playbook that we can help other states and other issues be able to turn around and capitalize on this. And with guys like you giving us the voice to be able to do that, we can't afford to buy this sort of stuff. I mean, but the massive, expansive megaphone that the industry has given us to be able to spread that message, that's helped us get to a point to where we're now. We got 50 states worth of donations. We got the industry. We got organizations. We got big landowners. We got small landowners. We got a variety of different components that are coming together. And I think that when we go to the ballot on November 5th, I think our enemies are going to wonder what hornet's nest that they opened up, because they're going to see that we didn't win by 1 or 2 percentage points like they did on the Wolf deal. I expect that we're going to win by 5 or 10 or 15 or, if we could do 20 points, we'll send a message to them throughout the country to say, if you want to screw with us, you're going to have to screw with Kansas. You're going to have to screw with New Mexico, and vice versa.
You're going to have to screw with the whole army. This is an investment. You have to look at it as an investment for yourself right now, for your kids, for your grandkids, but also for wildlife. If the North American model if wildlife management goes away, what are they replacing it with?
Nothing.
Like what's there? It's nothing, right? So it's interesting that the anti-hunters, I mean, I honestly think they're anti-wildlife because they don't understand the management tool that men and women bring. We have 100 years of success that we can look back on, right? That's the kind of stuff we got to pierce the veil and get that out into the general public. We can use emotions combined with facts, not just emotions, but combined with facts, hand in hand, to, I think, really get that message across to the general public to where they're not necessarily becoming hunters, but they're in support of hunting. They're in support of fishing also, because that's thrown in. They're in support of, ranchers and farmers, meat, whatever you want to call it. When I brought up the, what was going on in Oregon, it's all of that. And we have to realize, what it is we're facing. And this is an investment. So what he's saying, we're buying tags, we're buying ammo, we're buying arrows. We do need money to go to the fight, and we do need money to go to the marketing of our good message that we can give to the general non-hunting public. Yeah. Absolute investment.
Give. That gets me fired up to donate. And that's a great point. You buy a tag in Colorado, donate, guys. I mean, this is not only our hunting heritage now, but is it going to be around in 20 years for our kids? Not if we don't fight.
Right.
Segments of it might not be around come January if they turn around and are successful in November. I don't want the voters of Colorado to look back in January of 25 and go, we didn't do enough up until November of 24. I don't want the non-resident hunter who contributes a significant amount of money. 58% of all of our wildlife game cash that comes into Colorado comes from non-resident elk hunters. We shouldn't discredit that. Now, you might get the resident hunter that gripes about too many non-residents in the field. Well, that's anywhere. That's a population control dynamic there, because if the non-resident hunter isn't there, there's non-resident outdoor recreationists from mountain bikers and campers and rock climbers and geocachers and dog walkers and everything else on the planet. We have too many people to do every single thing that we want to do the way we want to do it. We want to go out there on public land and have the solitude all to ourselves, 300 million acres, and nobody should be there except for us. Well, that's the way everybody else feels too. We understand that the public trust doctrine of public wildlife and resources and wildlife is for the public. We just have to figure out a way to appropriately manage that, segregate it to where it's utilized for everybody's benefit. And you can't do that if you're going to allow extremists, terrorists to set the tone and narrative of what we're going to do on our public lands and resources and what we're going to do with our wildlife management. You can't. If that's the case, then we ought to run a ballot initiative to make sure nobody gets to use public land during hunting season besides hunters. That would be a novel idea. I mean, it sounds lunatic wise to be able to think that way, but that's how extreme it would be to them if we were offering to do that sort of thing. We're just trying to make sure that everybody understands the difference between right and wrong, the nimbleness and adaptiveness that wildlife and game management agencies need to have. And I want to put the science back into science-based wildlife management. It's there. It's just a lot of levels they don't allow it to be used, and they allow human emotion through lies and deceit to be able to guide that ship.
Yep.
Well, and you've seen it in BC, which, I was able to
Grizzlies.
travel to this year. But yeah, the grizzlies are out of control. The human bear conflicts up there are out of control. And really, they're getting out of control in the states where we hunt, Dan. I mean, I know where I'm at in Ennis, Montana, the Madison Valley. We have multiple attacks every single year. And I saw more grizzly bears this spring. And not only grizzly bears, but they're also getting the elk calves. They're getting, they're displacing black bears. I'm seeing fewer black bears, but I saw like over a dozen grizzlies in drainages where I've never seen them last year. And it's just going to be more human bear conflict. But that's exactly what they did in BC is they took emotion and took the science out of it. And it was their voter bloc that voted to ban the grizzly hunting, and now they're having real issues with it up there. And so yeah, we just have to be careful that we don't fall into the same trap. And it's ridiculous to not we have biologists that sets quotas and limits and manage these game species, and to take it out of their hands for one species, it upsets the whole balance of the ecosystem, And so, yeah, these environmentalists, they don't know what they're pushing for, but it's disaster. I mean, you look in the park and you don't see the elk anymore. It's like all from putting wolves on the landscape or voting to put wolves on the landscape. But you mess with one thing and you mess with the whole ecosystem, and that's really scary when they're talking about taking away the control over mountain lions and over bobcats, because it's going to really upset the ecosystem.
There's not a solution when they come to the table. They want to take every single thing that we do off of the landscape. There's not a suitable number of harvest. It's zero. That's what it is. Doesn't matter what objectives that the wardens decide to do or the biologists decide to do or the scientists try to implement. It's zero. They want to dispute the facts. They want to dispute the science, but they don't have a replacement for funding. They don't have a replacement for management. They don't have a replacement for human-animal conflict. It's our way or the highway. You guys don't know crap. And the way that I try to promote it is through lies and deceit. And it's like a smoke and mirrors campaign.
Yeah. These people, they want humans to have hands off when it comes to wildlife.
Oh, yeah.
They don't want they want, we don't belong out there. That's what they believe. The general public does not belong out there killing animals. Nature can take care of itself. And that's not true at all either, I don't believe. Mother Nature, I mean, you have all these whacks and wanes of populations. The Western hunting and conservation model, the whole principle behind that is to manage all these populations with the goal of having more of a level line. And when you take an animal out of the picture, not one species is more important than the other. We take the grizzly bear, we set it off to the side and say, this is more important. You guys aren't allowed to manage that. And we have all the problems that we have because we're not following the model. And so I think, this model goes back to, the market hunting times. So tell us a little bit about that, like why that's important. That's why we've got to where we are today with the resource that we have today.
Well, the model itself was actually written by Valerius Geist and Shane Mahoney, and with help of John Organ and others. But it was based upon the preface of what was necessary under the Roosevelts and the Pinchots and the Giffards and the Hornadays and the Audubons and the guys that were foresightful when they formulated the Boone and Crockett Club and the Pope and Young Club and how they implemented of tragedies that were instilled because of human sprawl, human consumption, and overuse and abuse. Because what people don't understand and recognize, hunting as a whole, from the early parts of American history and culture, and worldwide for that matter, was done to supply a food source for a growing population, because there wasn't enough domestic livestock population or product to be able to turn around and supply for the human population. So they went out and extirpated and obliterated wildlife populations for human consumption. Now, there could there be a trophy component to that? Well, maybe. But the majority of the stuff was utilized for markets. You could go to the store and buy deer and elk and bighorn sheep in the day. You could go to restaurants and buy all that stuff. Wild fed stuff, not domestic raised like what we have today, where you can go to a restaurant and buy elk or buffalo or something. They obliterated wildlife populations, and our forefathers were foresightful enough to see into the future and go, we need to really think about how we're going to capitalize on what we think needs to happen as far as conservation. So when you look at the acts that were created in Congress in the early 1900s that went up into the Dingell, Johnson, Pittman, Robertson stuff from 37 to 53, the Migratory Waterfowl Acts, you look at the Endangered Species Acts, the Marine Mammal Acts, look at the stuff that was created. You know who did that stuff? Sportsmen and women. They're the ones who implemented and instituted all of that stuff. It wasn't the antis at that time. The antis wanted nothing. They didn't want salvation and they didn't want sacrifice. They wanted none of it. It was the sportsmen and women that turned around and did that. And that's what's got us to a level today that we need to act on what was done 125 to 140 years ago and say, we are not going to let you tear this down any farther, because if they do, what do we stand for? If we allow them to bastardize it, if we allow them to marginalize it, why are we any better or any worse? I think that's our line in the sand. That's where we turn around and say, stop, enough is enough, and we're all going to come together, lock arms, and figure out a way to do that.
Mm-hmm. And understand, we aren't villainizing the predators. It's not their fault, right? And I think sometimes maybe the messaging tends to aim that way, or maybe that's the perception. It's not the grizzly bear's fault. We can't stand for the North American model and villainize a predator or say a predator doesn't belong, right? It's management. We need to manage the predators. We need to manage the wolves, the grizzly bears, the coyotes, you name it. That's what this all comes down to. It's not about getting rid of all the predators. That would be, how do we stand for the North American model and say that? We got to make that, I think, clearer.
It's like on the wolf. Colorado voted to have wolves in by ballot box biology. I sat on the stakeholder advisory group for wolf introduction and was appointed to that. I'm not anti-wolf. What I am is anti-ballot box. If wolves came in naturally through the cycle of attrition, which they were starting to, as we actually voted on this as a public, I, as an individual sportsman, feel that we lost that ballot 51.9% to 41.1 or 49.1.
33,000 votes.
51.9 to, it was 33,000 votes is what it turned out to be. We lost. Okay, does that mean that we should have wolves running around the country unequivocally with no management, no harvest, no nothing? But do I want wolves extirpated? No. I mean, we got wolves from Oregon that were just dumped in there in December of 23. Do I think that they should be ran out and shot? No, but let's manage them. They can be effective on the landscape, but we got 5.9, almost 6 million people in the state of Colorado, and the advocates say, well, in Yellowstone, I'll tell you what, there's not cattle grazing in Yellowstone. There's not the infrastructure in Yellowstone. You don't have the population density, human population in Yellowstone. You compare Yellowstone to Colorado, that's like comparing brain surgery to Chinese checkers. I mean, it's not. And I think the general public is not that stupid not to put two and two together, but we've allowed that message from the opposition, from the terrorists, from the extremists to say what they say is right in a little block of land called Yellowstone compared to what Colorado is or Wyoming is or Montana is or Idaho is or Washington is, or it's not comparable, and it's not going to ever be comparable. And those wolves in Yellowstone are going to expand out to some other area as the food source depletes a little bit. Well, where's it going to go in Colorado? Yeah. It's on public land. It's going to go on private land. Then it's going to go on more public land. Then it's going to go on more private land. They're going to follow the elk herds. They're going to follow the deer herds. And while all that is happening through that whole introduction debacle, as far as I'm concerned, if they ban the harvest of mountain lions in the state, we've got roughly 5,000 mountain lions in the state of Colorado. That population is going to continue to grow. And while wolves are growing to some level, we got 15 now in 5 years. If we have 150, we'll have 7,500 lions. That's undeniably probably not the most smart comparison, because if you look at 150 wolves are going to eat a lot of stuff, but 7,500 lions are going to eat a hell of a lot more.
Yeah.
And understand that we have the data in California. California banned mountain lion hunting. Mountain lions are still being killed at the same level or more than when they were being harvested. I'll make that separation when hunters were paying into the system. Now, the people who voted to ban it are using their tax dollars, they don't know this, to still kill mountain lions, because they still need to be managed to some level. Like, management is always a necessity. It's just, well, we had a pretty good system where we paid into that and we were used as a tool for that. Now they're still killed. 0 mountain lions were saved as they, that was their propaganda. We need to understand those points. And it goes back. They're a fundraising machine. We won. We got a bunch of money. That's it. Let's not talk about the mountain lions that are still being killed, because they can't do that.
Yep.
So scary, isn't it? Their tactics that they use. And you're right. I thought that was a real important part you guys made. A point you guys made about, we don't hate the predators. It's just like that's where they take the fight first.
Oh, because it's fuzzy.
Yep, they've hijacked that narrative of predators.
Look at the Teddy Roosevelt, the teddy bear. Mm-hmm. That's where it came from.
Yep.
And so you got people that talk about teddy bears, that we shouldn't be killing the teddy bears. I'm not saying we should kill everything. We should manage stuff, because this is not 1640, the year 1640. It's not 1730. This isn't Yellowstone. We are part of the ecosystem. We are part of the process. The human population on this planet is part of this. And we, as sportsmen and women, came up with the best mechanism to be able to manage in sustainable wildlife populations in perpetuity. We came up with that. The animals didn't. I mean, we turn around and raped and pillaged the landscape to the point to where maybe if I was a wolf, I wouldn't want to be relocated or translocated from Oregon to Colorado. Maybe I had a better life up there than what it could be down here, especially when you look at how things are going to be managed down the road. People talk about, I speak for the wildlife. I'd like to know how the hell you do that, because we've been speaking for wildlife for the last 140 years through our dollars, through our acts, through our legislation, through our boots on the ground experience. It should be our champion moment. It should be our monument that we turn around and stand up and say, this is why we do what we do. And I laugh about this because we don't recognize, of course, you can get on a tangent on all these things. How many animal activist museums have you ever seen? Where do people take their families to go on an animal activist museum? If they did, how many people would actually go there, for one? But go to Johnny Morris's World of Wildlife Museum. Go to the Smithsonian. Go to the Natural History Museums. Go to, somebody's collection that they've got, that they've accumulated over the years, that is their life's endeavors to be able to contribute back into the resource. Where do you go to see that from an animal activist side of things? They take their kids to see our stuff that we promote, that they try to take away. I think the hypocrisy there is almost comical. If we could just get people to understand, we all got to eat. If you want to go to Whole Foods, or you want to grow it yourself, or you want to turn around and harvest something off the landscape, or raise a cow or whatever, we all have to eat. Quit trying to screw with my stuff. Quit trying to take my livelihood away. Quit trying to take my facts and twist into some lie that you can convince the public to do what you want them to do, when you are the hypocrite and you don't do the stuff that you say that you do.
And are we not a part of nature? Back to what you were saying, we need to just let nature be. Where did we come from? What do you mean? We're not a part of nature? Of course we are. We always have been a part of it. Whether you believe in God, the Bible, evolution, whatever, you're a part of nature.
We're here,
right? We can all find common ground on that. And since we are humans have always been hunters to some extent. It's an intrinsic human value. There was always a group of people in a tribe, town, village, whatever you want to call it, that were hunters. And essentially, what is it we're doing? We're going on adventures. We're going into the wilderness, or we're going in a tree stand, or we're doing it, and we're coming back with wild food. And it's a beautiful thing. I don't like to overcomplicate it. We're doing the same thing we've always done. We got to eat. We're going to eat meat. That's not going to go away. I know people are trying to, and that's fine if you want to do that. But that's all we're doing here. And it is an intrinsic human value. And I think we need to kind of, focus on what it is simply, and break it down the kind of brass tacks. We're not bad people. We were just talking, when we meet people face to face, they come away with a different perspective.
Yeah.
Because they've just been told a bunch of lies. You meet me and I'm a pretty good person, and I'm going to feed you some wild game, and you might see what you'll call the trophies on my wall, but I have a story about every single one of them. And now you're eating that, and it's, oh wow, I didn't realize that. The general public, a lot of them don't realize we have to buy tags and licenses, and there's quotas, and there is game management going on from department. They don't realize that. That's the information we got to get out.
And they don't realize it, like you and I talked about earlier. For Colorado, for instance, 100 people buy an elk tag, 91 of them go home unfulfilled. That's 9 that turn around and got something. We say in one of our commercials, you imagine if you went to the grocery store and were unsuccessful 91% of the time to get something off, which a lot of people did during COVID.
Yeah.
They started to realize that first of all, you couldn't buy hot dogs, let alone toilet paper. But 91% of the time you would go and you wouldn't find something there that you wanted to take home. Sportsmen do that, but they buy the license for the opportunity to be in the field, to pursue that opportunity, knowing full well that it goes to the management and the stewardship under the North American model and science-based wildlife management, so they can do it again next year and next year. Man, I know guys that have hunted elk for 25 years in the state of Colorado, have killed 4, but they contribute every single year. I know guys that are paying non-resident tags in 2 or 3 states, 10 or 15 years running, and they take 2 or 3 elk home. I mean, out of 15 states, 5 states, whatever. Who else does that? Who else would turn around and say, I want to spend $150 to go to Disney World with my kid, and we can't ride a ride? They're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's going to turn around and say, I want to go to the Rockies game, and I want to spend $50 on a ticket, and I don't get a seat? Mm-hmm. You're not. We have the opportunity to convey a message about what we do, whether we're successful, whether we're unsuccessful, whether we put in for a tag, whatever we want to do on our landscape. It's ours to defend. It's theirs to turn around and take away. But I think we're bigger, better, meaner, faster, stronger than all them combined. We just have to figure out a way to mechanize and weaponize our efforts and talk about our successes in the past. And the best way to do that is drive through Utah, drive through Wyoming, turn around and take a hike or a bike or walk or whatever. You don't have to hunt and fish to enjoy everything that hunters and fishermen provide. Mm-hmm. They provide it on the behalf of every single person because it's public trust. It's something that everybody owns, but only a small percentage of people actually pay for it.
Yeah. No, it's so powerful. It's so important. And like you say, the prettiest landscape to me is a game-rich environment where you can see all animals. You can see deer and you can see elk and rabbits and maybe a bear, mountain lion if you're lucky, that they're out on that landscape. And that's the piece where that narrative gets hijacked again, where this public says, oh yeah, like I'd like to see more wolves on the landscape, or I'd like to see more mountain lions on the landscape, but they don't realize that that's not what happens. Mm-hmm. It takes away from those ungulate populations, and pretty soon those ungulate populations go away, and then pretty soon those predators start to starve to death, and that landscape is barren. You can't just take away the management for some of these species that have a direct impact on that ecosystem. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. And they have this bigger thought and this bigger purpose to end hunting. Oh, somebody left their lights on again, but
maybe he got a moose tag.
Lost his Let's hope so. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, a lot of these people that have voted for these, they get fooled or they get tricked. They don't get the whole truth of what's going on or what they're voting for. They're people that are living their lives and working their job, and they hear something come up and they hear the narrative from the other side, and they're like, well, yeah, I'd like to have more mountain lions around. It'd be really fun to see one of those, but they don't realize the impact that it's going to have on their pets, on their animals, on their ungulate populations. And now they go drive out to their public land to go enjoy it, and they don't see a deer, don't see an elk. The landscape is void of animals, and that's what we're trying to avoid. You know, it's the thing is we love to hunt, and like you said, 90% of us are unsuccessful, but we love the opportunity and the adventure and the challenge that it gives us to be able to go out there. And what they're trying to take away from us is that opportunity, and they're trying to take it by changing this narrative. And so that's why I just think it's so important what you guys are doing and sharing this message to make sure that we nip it in the bud now and don't let it get too far down the road where they're attacking your state or they're attacking your deer elk hunting, or they've changed the predator laws now where you don't have those ungulates.
Well, the statistics that are out there, you know, we got roughly 6 million people in the state of Colorado. In 2022, we had 84 million visitors. 84 million visitors. I don't think that's a real good place to have a wolf population just grow to the point to where it is in Montana and Wyoming and Idaho. But 84 million visitors that come to Colorado benefit off of hunting and fishing dollars and sportsman and conservation efforts. But that's magnified by 50 different states in some way, shape, or form. Every single state has what we have, just we have an excessive amount of people that want to come see the mountains and come see the wildlife and recreate and cross-country ski and snowshoe and river raft and walk and hike and camp and bike and all the other stuff. But while all that goes on, 95% of those activities, unless it's a private industry on a ski resort or a rafting company, are paid by sportsmen and women. So we have that. So we have the proper management to be able to do that. I think once the general public sees what's on the ballot, they're going to look at a government extremist overreach, and they're going to check the right box. They're going to make the right decision how it affects them. The problem is when we talk in our silos like this, we're preaching to the choir. You know, it's the hook and bullet hunter angler group that we're here. I'd love to be able to turn around and go to an Amway convention and have these type of conversations. I'd love to be able to turn around and go to an animal activist convention if they would ever have them, but I don't think they want to see each other enough to be able to turn around and have a convention. But they'll come and protest ours. You know, they'll come and protest it and gripe about what we do on the landscape at the Capitol, or the Parks and Wildlife Commission, or whatever their game agency. If I had a chance to be able to ask the stakeholder, the hook and bullet guy or gal, what do they think that they do to contribute right now? It would be interesting to see what sort of answers you got, because I guarantee that majority of them, because I know for a fact from our culture and from our customer base that we operate a wildlife control business. We solve human-animal conflict resolution issues, have for 37 years. So I'm in people's houses. The majority of sportsmen and women that I deal with say, well, I'm a member of Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, or I'm a member of Mule Deer Foundation, or I'm a member of SCI. That's fabulous. But what do you do individually to fight for your right to continue to be a member of those organizations that do things on your behalf? They do things from a conservation perspective, not necessarily from a fight perspective. SCI, to the extreme, they've got a 501c4 and a C3. We, as the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management, are a C4. We can fight. We can educate. We're not a membership organization. We don't pull fences. We don't do cow-calf recruitments. We don't go out and do let counts on sage grouse and pheasants and stuff. We don't. There's plenty of organizations that do. The problem that we run into on the animal activist side is they are all 501c3s as well, but there's so damn many of them that they can contribute a certain amount of each one of their dollars to go to the fight. And while we're talking to our memberships, doing magazines and doing banquets and fundraisers and all the yeoman's work on the conservation landscape, we have been defunct on a large scale about standing up our flag and saying, come fight, come take it away. We're not going to let you do that. We've been complacent with mediocrity for so many years, and I think there's an opportunity that we can take this momentum, take this success, have a giant victory in Colorado, and then turn around and prop up that structure and that roadmap and that playbook to say, anybody else want to join us? Can we join anybody else? Can we lock arms with the guy in California or the guy in Florida or the guy in Michigan? One thing I want to mention about this is if you don't know what Initiative 91 is in Colorado, go to SaveTheHuntColorado.com website. We've got the initiative on there. You could also go to the Colorado Secretary of State's website. The provision in there about hounds needs to be mentioned to the upland bird hunter and the waterfowl hunter, because they don't want you to be able to use a dog for any reason, and they don't want you to be able to use electronic collars, tracking collars for any reason. If you think that this is not going to affect you, the wording in this can get to the point to where it just morphs into something so broad and so deep. For all the other guys that said, well, it can't happen to me, it's not going to happen here, I think that we have an opportunity to educate the general public, because stop and think how that could get into something where you can't use a training collar on your bulldog in the backyard, or when you go to the park with your Labrador Retriever that does not hunt birds, but you're using that as a training device to be able to keep your dog in check and keep him off of private property, or to make sure he's obedient enough to where he doesn't have to worry about liability issues and so forth. This is not just about one single thing for mountain lions and bobcats. It's about multiple things if you get into the weeds and start reading through the misnomers and the fallacies and the falsehoods that they've created in these measures.
Or you won't be able to take your grandkid fishing at the pond. Back to IP3.
Yep.
I mean, that's wild, right?
Or trap a mouse.
Understand their goals. Yeah.
Or trap a mouse.
Yeah.
No.
IB3 is that Oregon initiative?
Yeah, it's dead now, but there'll be I don't know what it is, IP36 or something. Looks like they're going to try and get it back in 2026.
Yeah, it's
just shake your head.
It just brings it to the forefront of our mind that it's something that we love to do, and we have to fight to protect it. And I think we can all do more, and we can all be better, me included. You know, it's like one of my big goals for this season is like, I love to bow hunt animals in these different places, but I also have to put effort into educating our audience. I have to put my dollars behind it so I can support this fight. I have to stand united, arm in arm with my brothers and my sisters that maybe enjoy other outdoor recreation or activities that, you know, maybe aren't my cup of tea, but I need to support them and stand arm in arm. And I would just hope that you guys listening will help fight to help support what we love to do and protect what we love to do for other Americans, future generations. Like this can all go away, and so I think it's more important now than ever to really be involved and help fight it. So maybe if we can just wrap this up, and I really appreciate your guys' time, but what would you see, Charles, in a perfect world? People getting involved, or what's your vision for the future to continue to fight to help win in these battle states and these battle initiatives like Colorado?
Simple, maybe. So there's 82 million sportsmen. Let's start off with getting 1% of them being engaged in the fight. Let's get them to become activists. So we need something at the commission meeting. We got enough people to go there. We need something to, reach legislators. We got enough people to go there. We need people to register to vote. Like you brought up, there wasn't enough people registered to vote in Colorado for the wolf issue. What was it? 114?
Mm-hmm.
Measure 114.
Prop 114.
We got enough people engaged there. If we need funding in New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, we have a war chest that comes from that large group of sportsmen who can fund that now. Instead of us, so when something drops on us, we're not, telling ourselves, oh, shoot, we got 10 months to raise $5 million. We need to be able to fund the fight starting right now when those people need it. Like when CRWM needs it. It'd been awesome if when this dropped back in September, we're like, you guys got your ducks in order? Who do you have hired? All that? Cool. Guess what? We got a war chest of $5 million we can send you right now. That's what I want to get to.
We were prepared to do the initial stages because we prepared for the inevitable, knowing what we were successful on before. So when these things dropped, we were able to hire the team, the strategy team, and the attorneys within 3 days. 72 hours, we dropped the hammer and we started challenging things. If we didn't do that then, we would not be where we are at today. They would have already gathered the signatures because they could have started gathering signatures on November 1st.
Yeah.
Now they just started like the 4th of February. We kicked them back, and we got language that we wanted in there. We changed their language. That's one of the rounds that we talked about that we won. We sent another initiative back home to where they couldn't capitalize on that. That's another round that we won. The funding is another initiative, another round that we won. If I was looking at the general public and how they could turn around and take what we've accomplished so far, look around your own state or look around your own county and figure out how volatile your landscape is and how much the people that you socialize with or that you congregate with or your coworkers, how much do they know about what you do? I'm not talking grip and grin and pictures all over. What do they know about what you do for them? I don't think we've done a very good job of actually telling those people that what I do is so you can go out with your kids and you can camp and you can see and you can do all this stuff. Maybe you can fish. You need to pick up the torch, educate your peers and educate your coworkers, and also figure out a way to dig deep in your pockets to help us to where we can promote that message at a level that is so recognizable. When the enemy is done with this on November 5th, they go, we opened up a hornet's nest on that. We don't want to screw with them. We want to go somewhere else. So I'm hoping that we helped awake a sleeping giant, that they arose unintentionally.
If you'd like to sign up for the elk competition by Chad Shear, you can do that.
You can't make it up. It's a bingo drawing. Did you win, Dan?
Again, that's the elk competition.
I never win anything.
No,
Speaking of funding the fight, I mean, if we had 1 million people giving $25 a year, that's $25 million a year. That can do a lot. That puts us at in a fairly level playing field is what the anti-hunters do. We got to mirror a lot of what they do, and I do applaud them for what they've done and for their organization and how they're able to fund these issues really around the world. That's what we need to do, and I know we can. We have the people. We're a part of a multi-billion-dollar industry. $50 a year, that's $50 million a year. We can get a Super Bowl commercial. You know what I mean? There's a lot that can be done, and that's where we where we absolutely have to go.
$50 million, you beat every initiative that comes to the Western United States at every single level, and there's no way, shape, or form that they can turn around and do anything. And they want to go to the East. Well, then the East emulates what we've done in the West, and you have another 50. We're talking such a small, minute amount of money.
Yeah,
I mean, look at the excise tax that we turn around and put in through Pittman Robertson and Dingell Johnson. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that go into conservation. We need to do at least some millions of dollars into messaging about conservation. We don't need to be talking to ourselves. Nobody here really doesn't understand some of the components of what we're talking about. We need to get the people that don't do any of this to recognize the fact that something is there that they benefit off of, that they don't have to do a damn thing for if they don't want to. But try not to degrade and erode it to the point to where it's not there for your kids down the road, for your enjoyment down the road. Yeah. I think that's the thing we need to deal with.
Yep. I think that's spot on. I just thank you guys for getting us started down this path and really fighting for what we love to do. And it's just a great organizations that I love to support with my own dollars, and I'd encourage our audience to do the same. And if we don't fight for it, it will go away. It's so important what you guys are doing. So thank you so much. Thanks for coming on the podcast, sharing the message. I really appreciate you guys.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you guys.
Yep,
awesome. Goes a long ways.